Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Welcome back to your late update on stimulus negotiations, stimulus checks, and the news of the day. Remember to use coupon code Larry to join the investing courses, money courses, and the YouTube course linked below. Mark Meadows is pushing for new stimulus checks to go to the people. This is not a surprise, but it is very good news that he is finally talking about stimulus checks again, that people are actually talking stimulus checks. For the last few weeks, I've been very frustrated, feeling like we have been forsaken. That is, the people have been forgotten. Everybody else is worried about their conventions and their campaigns and getting reelected. But finally, we hear that Mark Meadows, Donald Trump's chief of staff, is pushing for another round of stimulus checks. We already know that Donald Trump and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin are for another round of stimulus checks. We know that Democrats are for another round of stimulus checks, and we know that many Republicans are also in favor of stimulus checks. At least enough Republicans are in favor to actually pass a bill. So we have enough people to pass the stimulus check legislation. We just need something to finally bring it together and bring this up for a vote. Now, we know that stimulus checks are good politically. We know that they're targeted. And remember, how many times over the last few months have we heard Congress demanding, quote, targeted stimulus action? Well, the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin tells us stimulus checks are targeted. Even Mitch McConnell has relented and said, yeah, you know what? Stimulus checks did turn out to be targeted once the data was analyzed. And with an election 70 days away, I think we all know that another round of checks would be politically advantageous for them. And hopefully, in addition to checks being beneficial to their wonderful campaigns so they could get reelected, hopefully they also think that stimulus checks would be helpful to the people who need them, which in my opinion is the top priority. If I was a politician right now, I would rather not get reelected, and I'd be standing in Congress every day until we finally got these stimulus checks out, because that's what was promised. They shouldn't have said Americans should expect a more generous stimulus package and another round of stimulus checks if they weren't planning on doing it. So it appears that Mark Meadows is the man trying to push this promise through. This is good. This is hopeful. I like to hear this. Now, I'm going to try to stick to good news, but Nancy Pelosi was also interviewed on MSNBC, and she was asked if Americans should be hopeful that Congress and the White House can reach an agreement on a new stimulus bill. Nancy Pelosi answered this very politically, and I want this to be a good news video update, so I'm not just going to read her quote to you because we have to add some context. Remember that Nancy Pelosi is trying to pressure Republicans to accept her bill. So she's going to cast shade. This is normal. So when you hear her say, quote, a lot of that will be up to the administration if they stop making misrepresentations to the American people. So this is really Nancy coming across as, not too optimistic here on this next stimulus passing, but she's doing that with a political motivation. I am hopeful, especially now that we have Mark Meadows clamoring for checks, and we know that Nancy is pro-checks. Now, right now, everybody's digging in their heels, and this negotiation is going pretty hardcore, but remember this, not only do we now have the White House chief of staff walking around looking for checks, basically, but remember something that not a lot of people are talking about. Nancy Pelosi, she told us she is willing to wait on state and local government funding until January. Almost nobody is reporting that, and that's really important because she is signaling, hey, I'm open. Let's just focus on unemployment and the checks and funding for schools and maybe food insecurity. The state and local government part, that's the big $1 trillion piece that's missing between where Democrats stand and where Republicans stand. I wish they would make that a little bit more clear because this has come out from both sides. And I research this stuff all day long to try to find the little nuances. I'm optimistic with this swap from Mark Meadows. Now, something that I just want to clarify because it's turning into a scam. Mortgage forbearance. It's very important that you know your rights because the law has you protected. The law says you have the right to 12 months of forbearance if you have a federally backed loan. Here's what I encourage you immediately do. If you have an FHA loan, a conventional loan, or a VA loan, which you should know based on what you purchased, you could call up your lender, call up your real estate agent. You should know what you have. If you don't, you could call the lender and find out too. All of those loans are federally backed. Then, go to consumerfinance.gov or Google Consumer Financial Protection Bureau mortgage forbearance and read what your rights are. Many banks are taking advantage of us not knowing our rights. And they're offering us crappy terms like, well, give me your bank statements. Well, make sure, here's 3 months and then we'll think about it and all this crap. Those are not what the law is. If you have a federally backed loan, you've got to document your rights and align them with the law and show the bank where they're wrong. These people sitting in the call centers and writing these emails at the banks, they don't even seem to know the law. I continue to get messages from so many of you and comments from you and messages on Instagram and Twitter and now even some on TikTok that I highly, highly encourage you make sure you read the actual text of the law and be protected. You can go to, and it's just a redirect to a YouTube video, metkevin.com/forbearance. Get forbearance. Okay, and do this unless you're going to refinance within 3 months, right? You could always cancel it when you start making payments again, and it's a good way to build an emergency fund. On unemployment, Texas has been paid. Texas officially has had its first payment get initiated today. So if you're in Texas, you haven't gotten your money yet, you might get it tomorrow or this week. But this is very good news. Texas and Arizona are now showing up as paid for at least the first week of the unemployment boost. That is the new FEMA boost. Arizona has also allegedly gotten their retroactive pay, which is very, very good. The earlier a state is, by the way, in getting this pay rolling, the more money there is in the pot for the state to get it. So you could see Arizona getting a whole lot more than like a slow state that ends up signing up. On eviction protections, the Wall Street Journal reports that New Orleans is bracing for evictions as renters fall behind on rent and more belongings are being thrown onto the street as people get evicted. Oh, I know I said this was supposed to be a good news report, but I'm going to show you why this is actually good. The more publicity we get in the big papers, and when I say big papers, I mean Wall Street Journal, and they're a little right, New York Times, they're a little more on the left side, okay, we know that. The USA Today, when we get reports like this in these big papers, politicians see them. And the more we hear of people, and this, again, like, I feel terrible for people getting evicted. But let me be real about this. So let me try to get through this. This is a hard one, okay? The more people are suffering from evictions and the more stuff ends up in streets, the more politicians are finally going to realize, hello, gotta do something. Isn't that sad that this is what our country has come to? But that's the way it is. So the bottom line is, it's almost like we need to see people suffer for the government to actually act. But we need these eviction protections to come through, and we need rental assistance for people who are suffering right now. And look, even if you work hard for your money and you're thinking, oh, that's a handout for tenants or whatever, realize homeowners can get a handout too. It's called mortgage forbearance. Everybody needs some help during this pandemic. And that's good for society. People getting evicted is not good for society. It's not good for the neighborhood. It's not good for home values. It's not good for rents. It's not good for anything in a neighborhood. That's the point of having a government, is to make sure there's nobody left behind. But these days, it feels like more and more people are being left behind. It's so frustrating. By the way, if you've liked this video so far, could I ask you to consider sharing this? I'm trying to keep these updates now more just focused strictly on news and as positive as we can be, even though there's so much BS. In fairness, though, I know some of you look for jokes, so I included one. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is continuing to get grilled by the Congressional Oversight Committee, which is weird because oversight seems to define Congress, who's totally failed us so far on another stimulus package. Now, I'm hopeful, but in the meantime, I think we should change the name from the Oversight Committee in Congress to the Failures Committee, because then at least it would align with what's happening in Congress. Kellyanne Conway at the White House is leaving the White House. She is obviously super pro-Trump. She works for Trump. That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have your side. The problem for Kellyanne Conway is her husband, George Conway, is super anti-Trump. He works for the Lincoln Project. Now, both of them are leaving their jobs, but this family has had so many problems, and it goes to show how divisive our country is. To just imagine having a super Trumper and a super not Trumper in one household, that their daughter, their 15-year-old daughter, Claudia Conway, tweeted that she's trying to get legally emancipated from her parents. This comes at the same time as Kellyanne says she's leaving the White House to be more mama and less drama. Her words, not mine. And it's sad because, again, it goes to show how divided our country is. We should be able to unify. And it's so tough these days. It's so frustrating. People need help. How hard is that? On COVID news, case counts and deaths are down. I've also been keeping track of our Google Trends for COVID testing, coronavirus testing, COVID symptoms, and a whole host of other searches that I have for tracking this data. So that helps me also know when to invest in recovery stocks. Let me say, all of those searches are down 65% since July, when we saw a substantial spike in cases. This is very, very, very good news. Stay tuned. I'll probably be posting a video late tonight about Purple. It is a stock that you might consider investing in. Stay tuned for that. I'll give you all the details and price targets. And folks, there you have it. If you like this more streamlined information video and focused on the good in this sea and ocean of crap, let me know. Please consider sharing the video. Check out that courses, well, actually all of the courses down below using coupon code Larry. And folks, thank you. We'll see you very soon.